begin with the rocky relationship in Cleveland. Myles Garrett wants out. The Browns front office would rather go to couples counseling and work through their problems. Their big problem, though, is Myles wants to win. Doesn't think that'll happen in Cleveland. But with 14 sacks this season, he brought his streak of double-digit sack seasons to 7 straight. That sits third behind Reggie White and John Randall all time. Again, that is an active streak. We're actively bringing back John Breach and Will Brinson to talk and take us through what's going on in the AFC North and their offseason needs. And John, I'll start with you. The Browns' offseason plans could completely change depending on what happens with Myles Garrett. So how do they even begin to assess what they need to do until they get clarity on that situation?
Yeah, this is interesting, Mike. Hit the nail on the head that Myles Garrett wants to leave because he wants to win now. So you cannot blame him for wanting to leave Cleveland because you look at where this team is. Well, they need a starting quarterback. That's unclear going into 2025. Their running back situation, Nick Chubb set to be a free agent. So that's also unclear. Guess what? The left tackle situation also a little bit unclear because Jedrick Wills is set to be a free agent. So you're looking at 3 key positions, and that's just on offense, where it's just these giant question marks. I'm not sure how the front office can look Myles Garrett straight in the face and say, oh, yeah, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender next year. Well, you know what would take them a step closer to being a Super Bowl contender is trading Myles Garrett, because you're going to get a huge return for a player of that caliber, and that's how you start to rebuild your roster. So I do think that even though the front office has been adamant that they don't want to trade Myles Garrett, this feels like the best move for Cleveland. That allows you to start your rebuild right away. You can fill in those other holes during the free agency, during the draft, and plus you'll have a little bit more money to play with on the salary cap once you trade away Myles Garrett. So I do think that probably makes the most sense for Cleveland right now.
Well, no matter what happens with Myles Garrett, I'm curious what they do in the draft, because Cleveland is sitting at number 2. They could have a crack at either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. So do you think they'll be satisfied with either of those guys in the draft, or they look somewhere else with that pick, or do they take a free agent approach with that quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Cleveland, you probably need to do the sort of, I like to look at it maybe like Seattle did with Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn, where you take the sort of the 2-pronged approach. You sign somebody in free agency to try and make sure that you have a veteran there, and then that gives you the opportunity in the draft if you want to bring somebody in for the purposes of getting the young player, because you don't know, you don't control your destiny at number 2. You have these guys, and look, by the way, I wouldn't rule out Jackson Dart either at 2. Jackson Dart is a guy that's going to be very well thought of when we get to the draft. I think he'll move up higher than most people. I think some folks would even say he might be the best quarterback in the class. I know that's surprising, but nevertheless, if you're Cleveland, I think you want to have a veteran there. You've seen that veterans can work in that Kevin Stefanski system, and at the same time, you want to have the opportunity to bring somebody in, but not have to force them out on the field. We've seen that jersey with the list of Cleveland quarterbacks. It keeps growing and growing and growing, even when they hit on like a guy who was decent in Baker Mayfield. So I think the smart move here to take the dual-prong approach, grab a veteran, and then also look to one of those top 3 guys in that draft class at number 2, knowing that even if you get traded, somebody trades up with Tennessee, or Tennessee takes a quarterback, you still have somebody available, and that gives you a little leeway on that front.
John, let's stay in the state of Ohio here with the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins, number 2 free agent on Pete Prisco's top 100 list. Can the Bengals afford to pay both Higgins and give Jamar Chase the top dollar he's looking for?
Well, I better mention it now, because if I don't know, Brinson will. We all know the Bengals have a reputation for being cheap and frugal and penny pinching. Well, guess what? I think Joe Burrow actually knows that, because he's the guy going out there telling his grandpa to open up the checkbook. Let's sign everyone. There's a reason he went to Super Bowl week and did Radio Row, and every time he spoke, he was saying, we need to sign every single one of these guys, and I don't care how much money it costs. Well, I think the Bengals probably love to see that the salary cap is going to be going up so much in 2025. And I think when you look at what their strategy should be, it's probably going to happen. That is 1, tag T. Higgins. You're only paying him a little bit over $26 million a year. So it doesn't matter if his asking price is $30 million a year, because you have him at $26 million a year. That gives you a few months to try and work out a long-term deal. I think the Bengals will absolutely do that. So now you've got that situation dealt with. With Jamar Chase, wow, man, if they would have gotten a contract done last season, they could have saved millions. Now you have to deal with him coming off a Triple Crown season where his asking price is only going to go up. I think it's going to go up way past where Justin Jefferson is as the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. So I won't be surprised if Jamar Chase ends up with somewhere between $38 and $40 million per year when they maybe could have gotten him at 35 or 36 last year. So that's why you got to open up the pocketbook right now. And then obviously those are the two big ones. They've got a couple other question marks on offense. The offensive line, the interior offensive line are things they're going to have to get figured out. Cody Ford's going to be a free agent. Maybe Alex Kappa doesn't return. So they've got some decisions to make on the offensive line because we saw Joe Burrow get beat up once again, took the 4th most sacks in the NFL. So you got your receivers, your offensive line, but there are question marks, and the Bengals have the money to answer them. It's just a matter of whether they will use that money.
I have an idea if you're Joe Burrow, just to maybe help the situation. Sell the Batmobile and give that money to the Bengals so that, they can help pay these guys because you want them to stick around, throw some money in the pot. Well, sticking with Cincinnati, if not for that defense, they may have actually made a playoff run. Obviously, it was very close down the stretch. They bring back Al Golden to be their defensive coordinator. How do they revamp that side of the ball?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. My boy, shout out High Point, North Carolina, Jermaine Pratt, requested a trade and meet, pretty soon after Lou Anarumo was let go and moved on. And I think that speaks maybe to how this defense feels about Lou Anarumo and him sort of being scapegoated as a result of injuries and the defense. Look, the defense was terrible last year, no doubt about it. It was the weakness of that team, and if it's better, they are probably a playoff team, as you point out, Mike. I don't know. Let's see. I'm curious to see how Al Golden looks in this role. Does anybody have more gimmicks than Al Golden? The dude wore a suit and a tie when he's at Miami, and then he's wearing like rec specs, at Notre Dame. I thought it was fascinating that he has to have a gimmick wherever he goes. So I'm curious to see if he coaches in like a Skyline T-shirt or something like that in Cincinnati. But yeah, I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. But I do worry how if maybe we're sort of underrating how good Lou Anarumo was for his entire tenure with the Bengals, save for last season, and just how quickly Al Golden will be able to improve that defense.
Well, you're like his agent with endorsement deals with the.
No, I'm making fun of him for sure.
Okay. Sure. I covered him down. I covered him down here when he was rocking the orange tie a lot and the long sleeve shirt. I don't know how he did it in the summer and fall when it's like 90 degrees here in Miami. John, the Steelers, where it's like never 90 degrees in Pittsburgh, like the Browns, looking for that quarterback of the future. Is Russell Wilson, Justin Fields an option at coming back here? Or like Cleveland, are they looking for someone new under center in 2025?
Yeah, it's interesting because this is going to be the 4th year since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And the Steelers could be staring at having their 4th straight different Week 1 quarterback. I mean, did everybody remember Mitchell Trubisky was their Week 1 starter in 2022? And so, look, when you're in a division with Lamar Jackson, with Joe Burrow, the quarterback decision is absolutely one you have to get right. And the Steelers just haven't been able to do that. So you look at Russell Wilson, you look at Justin Fields. Those are the two obvious candidates. I won't be surprised if one of those come back to Pittsburgh. But then you also have a few wild cards out there. Maybe Kirk Cousins when he gets cut by the Falcons, Aaron Rodgers, if Mike Tomlin, because he clearly likes having a veteran presence under center, which is why I think he was so adamant about sticking with Russell Wilson. But it isn't just the quarterback position that Steelers have to worry about. They still need some wide receiver depth behind George Pickens. They're letting Najee Harris hit free agency, so now you've got to find someone to pair